In President Trump's primetime address this week on election fraud, he proved that American elections can get stolen by foreign powers in technologically sophisticated ways by uploading software into the voter systems and then having the election theft done through Venezuelan software, also through stealing our election data. China has done this. Also by rigging the minds of Americans. Iran and Russia have both done this. And then also by doing it the most caveman way, which would be to bring in infinity foreigners to vote in our elections. And if you have states like California, pretty much any blue state, there's no check if there's an American voting in the election. Donald Trump released data that shows at least 250,000 illegals registered to vote in the country. Not one, not two, 250,000, 200,000 just in California. So then President Trump calls on the passage of the Save America Act. But of course, that's a big uphill battle. What does he do next? Donald Trump needs to stop the fraud by stopping the ballots from being mailed. And he just had a massive victory on that front. So here's the major issue, that we mail out ballots in these blue states to everyone. That's including people who are dead, people who don't live there anymore, people who used to rent your house or live in your house. When I was in D.C., I got a stack of ballots this big. It included every single person that lived in my home. I bought my first house in D.C. It was in the ghetto. It was like a transient home before then. It got renovated. I bought it. But every person that had ever lived there, I got their ballot. It was this big. I must have gotten 50 ballots because it was like part of an apartment. They were apartments beforehand. And so in these scenarios, people who are, of course, criminals working for Democrats can just take all the ballots, fill them out, and vote with them. And of course, you can see that in thousands of elections all across the country. This is how they rigged it for Joe Biden. You can also see that.
This is the Ring camera video appearing to show a woman taking out 3 ballots from a Lawrence man's mailbox.
You can see how just open election theft occurs on Ring camera footage. This is in Massachusetts. One of my favorite stories is out of New Jersey, where the candidate himself was caught with his wife just stealing the ballots and voting for himself. He ended up winning the city council seat in Paterson, New Jersey. And now he's been charged with a crime. Anyway, how do you prevent this from happening? Well, the first thing you got to do is prevent those ballots from being mailed. And the United States Postal Service, which is responsible, of course, for picking up and mailing those ballots to everyone in states like California or every blue state, has won a massive victory. USPS to move forward with a major mail-in voting change, a win for election integrity. California voters facing long waits for election results just got a boost with federal appeals court ruling that could reshape how ballots are handled nationwide. A D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals Friday temporarily allowed the U.S. Postal Service to move forward with a proposed election mail rule requiring states to provide voter lists and serialized ballot barcodes before federal ballots are mailed. A move supporters say will strengthen election safeguards. California, where nearly all the voters receive ballots by mail, the decision could mark a major turning point in the ongoing battle over election confidence following repeated complaints of slow vote counts and unproven allegations of widespread fraud. Yeah, it's proven allegations, but whatever. This ruling is a win for election integrity and would have significant implications in a state like California to refuse to submit voter rolls to verify compliance. So this is genius. It's genius. So Trump wins. And what is the rule? The rule is that you need to turn over your voting list for us to be able to mail you a ballot. If you're a state and you don't turn over your voting list, we're not mailing you ballots because we're not going to be complicit in a felony. It's a felony for us to give a ballot to a criminal alien. And if you have hundreds of thousands of criminal aliens on your voter rolls, as President Trump proved in his speech, and it's just hundreds of thousands. This is just 5 states that they released. There are millions of criminal aliens that are voting in our elections, then we're not going to mail them a ballot because that would be in service of a felony. That would be illegal. D.C. Circuit has temporarily allowed the Postal Service to move forward with a proposed election rule requiring states to submit voter lists. So America, like our country, they run Social Security numbers. We know who's a citizen and who's not. They know where they are. Everyone's playing dumb. It's very easy. They know where to find people. They know where people are living. They know who's an illegal, and they know who's an American citizen. We keep track of that stuff. And so we would be able to cross-reference a state's voter lists with the actual list of American citizens and see who's illegal and not mail them a ballot. This is a common sense rule. The panel says the USPS would likely win on an appeal. Two of the independent reasons: the challenge is likely to be premature because it targets proposed, not final rule. And if adopted, the rule would likely not violate the settlement agreement. Okay. The U.S. court upholds postal service requirement. States submit voter rolls for citizenship checks before mail-in ballots are distributed. Very nice. So now every single state, every single blue state is going to have to submit their voter rolls. They've been hiding their voter rolls from the federal government. Woo. In its ruling, the appeals panel said it's going to prevail. Nice. Big election win for Trump. Mail-in voting is, of course, how they rig these elections. It's a huge victory for election integrity. Eligible citizens get ballots ahead of the midterms. No more turning a blind eye to outdated voter rolls. Huge, huge, huge. Breaking news: appeals court gives Trump a massive win. If you were to get rid of the mail-in voter fraud, you'd get rid of, I think, probably 90% of voter fraud. Because what are you going to do? Like wheel in a corpse to go vote into the actual polling center? No, you grab that dead person's mail-in ballot and you fill it out. Donald Trump saying we have to pass the SAVE Act now.
Is so bad, and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo, voter ID. How simple is that?
Ladies and gentlemen, the
voter list
of the postmaster general, he's a general.
Yes or no, if a state
I'm not going to mail ballots to states that don't give me their voter.
Refuses to turn their absentee voter list over to the federal government, will the Postal Service still mail their ballots under this proposal route?
Under our proposed regulation, no. We would tell the state that we need the manifest in order to, look, what we're asking for.
That's the answer. You'd tell no. So the proposed rule basically coerces states to conform to these new requirements and hand over their absentee voter rolls or face the consequences of not being able to vote by mail. Some states, that's all they do. Oregon is completely vote by mail. If they say, no, we control the list, the states control the list, we're not going to give it.
Oregon has followed Kit 600 since the day they started voting by mail.
This is a different issue. This will be a lot different issue. You're telling these states either give the federal government this information, trust the federal government, trust the Trump administration. We'll take good care of these. And if you don't do it, you can't mail absentee ballots. You're going to make a decision that people cannot vote by mail. That's unacceptable.
Well,
Thank
all
you, Mr. Chairman.
all that does, Senator, is make sure that we match the ballots that a state believes they're sending out to what actually gets sent out, right?
Right. I love it. Huge election victory. Things are looking actually, cautiously, optimistically good for the midterms. We'll see what happens, ladies and gentlemen. How do you vote? Me, in person, on Election Day. Call me old-fashioned. How do you vote? Let me know in the comment section. It's your boy, Benny.